And welcome back to Open Mic Wrestling Night here on Fill in the Void Podcast Network by way of Spreaker, Spreaker.com/filling_the_void. If you like my show, you'll like other shows like The Scholars of Wrestling, The Blake and Sal Show, who also talk about wrestling, and you'll enjoy many more, as I had just mentioned before. The Red Podcast, No Days But Today. You have Nerd Rage Renegades. You have the John LeBang Show. You got DJ Classic Presents the Indie Artist Realm. And many more here on Fill in the Void Podcast Network. So, with that said, let me get to Slammiversary. Now, I completely forgot it was on. I caught it on a feed. And I was really interested to see it because I looked at the card as I'm like, oh shit, it's on. I caught the card, like, on paper it looked really good. A very solid card on paper. But because of Impact Wrestling's reputation recently, it wasn't really something that, like, I was holding my breath on because, yeah, well, it's an Impact pay-per-view. The last Slammiversary before this one, Slammiversary 15, because this was the 16th installment, it was supposedly the new Impact. Changes were being made, so on and so forth. And it wasn't the case, which sucked. It was a very confusing show then, Slammiversary 15. Whereas this one here completely exceeded not only my expectations, but you could listen to anybody's commentary on it who isn't a biased wrestling fan. And by a biased wrestling fan meaning, oh, I only watch WWE, not really giving other things a chance. This was worth, and if you could find it anywhere, or if it's available for purchase at some point, it's worth watching. It's worth buying to see. Because, well, here are my notes here. Now, I'm going to go to my notes that I wrote down here about the show as a whole. Then I'm going to get to the matches and break them down a little bit at a time. I don't know how much I'm really going to be able to break down, but okay. This was held in Toronto, Canada, where Impact's new headquarters are. If anybody who doesn't know, Impact's offices, or TNA back in the day, were always in Nashville. Now with the new leadership that's involved with Impact, they're based out of Canada. So they had the event at the Rebel Entertainment Complex, which is in Toronto. A small club. Well, it's a big club, but you look at the venue, it's like, oh, it's like a glorified indie show. Well, I don't know what their finances are like, but this is honestly just the thing that they needed. Okay, because they're still trying to get rid of the stink of Impact of the past, of TNA. So, let's take a look here really quick. It was a hot crowd from the beginning of the end. And it also benefits that the show was in Canada, as I had said. It benefited being in Canada because Canada, they're huge wrestling fans out there. A rich wrestling history. I mean, I don't really have to go on with Bret Hart, Owen Hart, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, who are currently there. Chris Jericho, arguably one of the biggest stars ever in wrestling to come out of Canada. Current IWGP Intercontinental Champion. So, Canada has a rich history of great wrestlers, and they've always, like their hockey, they love their wrestling. So, this was a great place to have the event as far as an legitimate enthusiastic crowd is concerned. The commentary worked well together. Josh Matthews and Don Callis, now, for anybody who isn't following current wrestling, if you remember Cyrus the Virus or the Jackal of ECW and WWF days, respectively, he was great then too as a manager, and he did a little bit of broadcasting there. He actually did a lot of broadcasting with Joey Styles in the latter years of ECW, and he was really good. This team worked really well together. Don Callis had an interview somewhere where he had said it benefits him. He's never really been produced, which you could tell by listening to his commentary with New Japan with Kevin Kelly, and he never had that with ECW. But now you have a producer in his ear, and Josh Matthews has the WWE training of broadcasting, basically, of calling a wrestling show. He has that. So, between those elements, they worked really well together, and so Josh feeds Don, and vice versa, and it works out really well. And finally, Josh Matthews, I think, with this team, of the two of them, now, I'm not a fan of three-person broadcast teams. I'm not really that big of a fan of it. But the two of them together, they're working really well, and it was definitely a good combination. That was great. The one real criticism, I mean, I like the ring announcer. He was good, but you could have had somebody like a Justin Roberts in there who would have, I thought that would have made it better. I'm biased. I really was a big fan of Justin Roberts. He's actually part of the All In broadcasting, or broadcast team, if you will. And by broadcast, I mean with the color commentators, backstage interviews, ring announcing, anything. So he's a part of that. But having him hired with Impact would have been really good too. I think so. But only time will tell. But the announcer did a great job. A little bit of a different style, but I wasn't, I'm not going to kill it for it. It's just a pet peeve of mine. For casual fans, the video packages really help fans who are newer or catching up. I don't know who they have running their production now, but for me, as somebody who really hadn't caught an episode of Impact Wrestling in a long time, and I didn't know the storylines leading into these matches that looked so good on paper, with the exception, I think, of LAX and the OGs, because that was something that went viral in the sense of like, holy shit, now the original LAX is back, of Homicide and Hernandez. So I'll get more into that as I talk about the matches. But with everything else, with Pentagon Jr. versus Sammy, and Moose versus Austin Aries for the title, Brian Cage versus Matt Sydal, excuse me. It was really good to know, okay, well, this is how we got to this point, which is always, even WWE, they've always had a great production. They've always had great production. They've always had great everything, because it's top notch. I'm going to be sounding biased there, but it's just fact. It's just fact. So the fact that the production of the video packages was that well done, well executed, it really chronicled the feud in which we were about to watch the match for. Really very well done. Very, very well done. Let's see. I already mentioned the favorite feud leading up to this was LAX versus OGs, because, I already seen something with this beforehand. I love the belts. The new belts that they made for the Impact Championships they're well done. They're very well done, and they're distinctive. You could tell that they're Impact Championship belts. While my favorite TNA belt ever was either the original World Championship once they moved away from the NWA, or the one where like Lashley held the big belt. That was nice. And then the TNA Tag Team titles, the last ones before they really started making the move to Impact, labeling everything as Impact. Those were beautiful too. But these are nice. They're distinctive. And they're nice. Impact could benefit from a better TV deal. That goes without saying. Impact on Pop, okay, they have a home there. From what I understand, their international television is more lucrative than it is here in the United States, or I should really say North America. Let's just say the United States. If they got on a bigger network, and with the product that they're going with right now, and based on this pay-per-view, I would I don't have Pop TV on my cable. So, but if I did, I'd watch every week. And this event made me become a fan of Impact Wrestling once again. So, with Fox shelling out $2 billion to WWE for exclusive rights to broadcast SmackDown, and another big deal for them for Raw to remain on USA, all these big networks need exclusive live content. And pro wrestling is on the rise. It's in a big boom once again. So if Impact could keep this trend going, and more television companies see, okay, well, this is a big deal, then we'll see them on a better network. You know, if Impact and Ring of Honor both had better TV deals, then they would really give WWE a run for their money, and they would force them to actually pay attention to what they do on their main roster product versus what they do on NXT. There were a lot of comments on failed WWE talents, and I only see that because of the feed that I was watching from and things on Twitter. You know, you got to think of things like this. Failed talents come from all over the place, and then they go into a new situation where they succeed. It didn't work one way or another, and that's just the way life works. You know, you look at guys like Triple H, Undertaker, and Steve Austin, who were WCW. If the internet was around back then, they would have been called rejects. Oh, well, Terrorizing is now in WWF as Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Oh, you know, he failed in WCW. What makes you think that he's going to succeed here on the bigger brand? Undertaker, me and Mark Callis, same thing. They're really sticking him as this Undertaker guy. This is never going to work. Well, you know, 25 plus years later in the WWE, you know, it speaks for itself. And Steve Austin, that's another one that just speaks for itself. You know, and again, it just bothers me that these counts are considered failures. They're not considered failures. They're on television. Any of these fans that are criticizing them, I would like to see you get on TV for wrestling, to put in the time, the effort, everything that they put into for their craft, to even be acknowledged and to be wanted on these live national or international productions. That's still big. That's not a failure. It's a success. Just because it didn't work in WWE doesn't mean it can't work anywhere else. Look at Juice Robinson. He's now the IWGP United States Champion. Kenny Omega was a failed, if you want to put it that way, WWE OVW prospect, and he, you know, now he's one of the biggest wrestling stars in the fucking world. Now he's the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, and he and along with the Bucks and the Bullet Club are doing big things for pro wrestling. So again, just because it doesn't work there doesn't mean that you're a failure. You're just finding other success in different places. I had mentioned small yet nice venue for this pay-per-view during rebuild. I already had mentioned that, but you know, it was a good build, good place for it to be held. It was a nice looking building, nice size for their rebuild, and again, if they keep this momentum,